we make reproductive cells, there's a unique process called meiosis. Meiosis means to reduce or to cut in half. We have to reduce the chromosome number. So when our reproductive cells are being made, or plants' reproductive cells are being made, it starts with the cell that has a copy from each of their original parent. But when we make the reproductive cells, a unique process called meiosis, you only get one talk about dominant and recessive, it doesn't mean good or bad. It just means that if you get a dominant version or a dominant allele, it will express itself. So it'll dominate its expression over the alternative form. So it doesn't mean good or bad. In order to show the recessive, the individual has to have two recessive alleles. So for this one, we know that the mom carries the recessive. She shows the recessive. In her egg cells, she will give one allele or the second recessive allele, but in both cases. And in this case, the dad will give one of the two dominant alleles he has. So all the offspring have one dominant and one recessive. And so they only show the dominant form. But now let's take another look at a different scenario. We say that these two individuals, instead, they have offspring that have both brown eyes and blue eyes. We know that the mom has to have both little b, both recessive allele to show the recessive form. But now we have to reason out, how can some of their children have that recessive form? The only way to have that is if both parents contribute an allele in the recessive form. And so we know that dad has brown eyes, but he's going to have children that have blue. So he has to be a carrier of the recessive allele. So his dominant allele, dominant capital B, is masking the recessive form, but he's still showing the recessive. Yep. Yep. Eye color, in terms of the amount of pigment with blue or brown eyes, like that, this particular gene we're talking about, like the intensity of the eye color. So there's more than one gene that determines, like I have green or hazel eyes, and so there's more than one gene sequence. We're just talking about strict blue or brown. So there's more than one gene that will determine if you have an individual. So if we take a look here, we know the mom will only give a little b. So if this offspring has a dominant B allele, who did he have to get it from? From the dad. Because the mom can only give, in her egg cells, she'd only give one of the recessive lowercase little b alleles. Okay, so we know that the dad had to give them a dominant allele. If we take a look at this last one here, both parents having brown eyes and having the ability to have an offspring have the recessive form. So we know they have dominant, so do the parents have to have a recessive allele? So if the parents don't have a recessive allele, how can they have an offspring that's going to show little b? If it belongs to them biologically, if it's their child, they each have to be a carrier. They're not showing the blue eyes, but they each have to be able to carry it if they both have the dominant outward appearance of the dominant form. And so we know for sure if they have a child with the recessive, each parent was a carrier of the recessive. They don't show it because the rows are dominant. If you have one dominant allele, your body's going to express the dominant protein that's being made. And over here, we wouldn't be able to tell if these children inherited both dominant alleles or one dominant and one recessive. You'd have to test the DNA sequence, and geneticists would have to read it and tell you if they have two dominant alleles or one dominant, one recessive. So based on the actual alleles you inherit for a gene, it can determine different effects in terms of offspring expression. So what did we show? We showed that for a given gene, there's different versions. Those versions are called alleles. So alleles are those different versions or forms of instruction of a gene. Just because someone has a dominant B and a little b, it doesn't mean they are going to pass on the dominant form in their reproductive cell. It's a 50-50 if you're going to inherit one allele or the other. So they don't show a blend in terms of this type of inheritance pattern. take a look at that visually, that last statement. This would be an individual. They're going to phenotypically show brown eyes. And their allele forms, they're going to inherit both dominant alleles. Whereas this person, they're phenotypically showing brown eyes. But one allele version is the dominant allele version, and the other one is the recessive. So both individuals share the same phenotype, but having a different genotype. When does that play a role? When they pass on and make their reproductive cells. This person could only pass on a dominant form of allele. This one could pass on a recessive to their offspring. So if we looked at that and set that up, now we've come to setting up a Punnett square. A Punnett square has us put the possible gametes, the reproductive cells of one parent on one side, and the reproductive cells of the other parent on the top of the square. Then you look to see how can those reproductive cells unite. Fertilization takes place, what can the offspring look like? And the inside of that square is going to tell you possible offspring outcomes. So if we wrote down this parent, in their genes, they have both alleles. They could give one or the other. So you only put one allele there, because remember, reproductive cells are haploid. They only have half the allele. Where over here, if these were egg cells, they're only going to give one or the other. So when you fill in the box, if this egg cell united with that male gamete, the offspring should be homozygous dominant. If this dominant B allele from the egg cell united with this sperm cell, the offspring could be heterozygous. If this egg cell fertilized with that male gamete,
Cool.